Hi, welcome to Healing Humanity. My name is Dina. I want to talk to you today about pain having a purpose. I know that doesn't sound right, and I know that there's a lot of people that say that, but they don't really believe it. And I know that there are some pains that just don't make sense. But I'm not talking about losses. I'm not talking about just un crazy undue pains that come on from someone else. I'm talking more about the pain that we get when we're walking with God, when we are looking for change in our lives, when we're trying to create something new. It all comes with pain, and people don't expect that. They expect, you know, this kind of walk just comes with immediate blessings and everything's fine. Well, that is so far from the truth. In fact, the Bible tells us so. God never promises us a life without pain. He just promises transformation, and he promises endless or everlasting life with him. But he doesn't promise a life without pain. So I want to read you a verse that's really important here, and it talks to my heart, and has given me hope through the walk I've had. So it's Romans 5, verses 3 through 5. And it says in the Bible, not only so, but we also glory in our sufferings. Now, this is the disciples, this is Paul speaking. Um, he wrote Romans, so he's talking to others that he's teaching. It says, not only so, but we also glory in our sufferings, because we know that suffering produces perseverance. Perseverance, character, and character, hope. And hope does not put us to shame, because God's love has been poured out into our hearts through the Holy Spirit, who has been given to us. So this sort of chain reaction, this narrative that he's written here, shows pain as being a pathway to something deeper, like a deeper faith that we're supposed to connect with, and connect to God, to God's love through that pain. And I'll say that definitely happened in my journey. I started off. I remember when I first realized that things were drastically changing, that something was not quite right. I was still in New Hampshire, and somebody was taking a picture of me. I was out to dinner with some friends, and somebody just sort of leaned across the bar, and I could see that she had taken my picture. Well, my patience level and my sense of uh, desire for privacy was tremendous at that moment, and as anybody's would be, right? Well, when she took my picture, I immediately got angry, and that's how I dealt with a lot of things. I dealt with it through control and anger, and so I confronted her, and I confronted her outside and insisted that she delete the picture, and we went back and forth, not physically, but I definitely had some strong verbal words with her. And that began me noticing certain other things that were happening as well. And the pain that I felt, like when I left New Hampshire and I went to Texas, I was fed this narrative. And not only was I fed a false narrative, but I also had thoughts of my own of what that could become. And it was so far from what actually happened. The truth of the matter was that I was lied to. The second was that I took steps that I probably should never have taken. And through my own sense of like control and knowing that I could take care of myself, I knew that I was taking a risk, but I did it anyway. And, going back, I probably would not make that same choice, but it did lead to, it led to some horrible things, but it also led to an inner strength that no one can really shake at this point, because I started to see the world much differently. I started to see people much differently, which was kind of sad because I had an open mind. I was sort of trusting, absolutely trusting in what people said rather than what they were showing me. I wasn't looking at that, and I hadn't probably my whole life. I trusted in what they said. I believed in what they said, or I wanted to believe in what they said, whether I did or not. I wanted to, and so I would give, chance after chance after chance. And after a lot of studying and reading, in New Hampshire, I knew that I was going into a risky situation, chose anyway for myself, knew I could take care of myself, so that wasn't an issue, but was still in such emotional distress at that point, because I didn't expect such nastiness and such complete disregard for years of what I thought was a friendship, and it wasn't at all. And that led me to drastically change my life. It led me to make some big changes and some big decisions. I was really feeling very trapped for a long time. Having trouble with my voice right now, but I would just say that everything that happened had to happen, and we really need to look at the pain that happens in our lives. I look back to my childhood too, certain things that happened in my childhood. As much as I would want to change them, I know that those things happened that caused me to learn and grow at such a young age, psychologically and spiritually, that it helped me with the situation when I got to Texas. So I was able to survive that and go through that and then thrive on the other side, not because of what happened there, but because of what happened when I was much younger, which is an amazing, to me, when I look at that, that's amazing to me that God made a plan for my life, unbeknownst to me. Maybe I did know before I got here, but I'll say unbeknownst to me during this lifetime, I did not realize that this is what I signed up for. And the plan, like, when you start to follow God and you start to allow Him to make changes in your life, and you start to allow His goodness to come into your life, you start to look at how all of these stressful, traumatic, bad events actually have formed who you are, have formed your decisions in ways that have led you to where you need to go, and will continue to do so as long as you continue to allow God to make changes in your life. And that's the thing, that the perseverance through that, those challenges and the craziness that can come with those challenges, that's where you just have to look, and it's kind of funny, because as much as you would want to change these things, you can't, because if you did, you would not have had the strength, the aptitude, the mental fortitude, the strength to get through whatever came all these years later. At least for me, anyway. And it can happen with good stuff too, but really, it's the pain and the trauma that truly changes us and drives us to be different, and to build that sense of self, the sense of like a keen awareness, and like counting on yourself to persevere through anything that life and other people might throw at you. That perseverance cannot be duplicated in any other way other than the traumas that have happened throughout your life, the pains that have brought you to the point where you're at, where you do persevere, you do not stop, you continue to strive and try to grow and build and do better. That's an amazing process to me, because that's something that, when you start to really look back and you put all of the little puzzle pieces throughout your life together, there's definitely a story there. There's definitely something bigger than you, with with their hand in your life to masterfully sort of build this dramatic play of your life, to build something that you couldn't possibly dream up on your own. It's something so much bigger than what your mind could possibly dream up. And I think that it's important to realize just how much that our pain can actually show us our purpose. It can lead us to our purpose, I think. Maybe not show us our purpose, but it definitely can lead us down that path. Some people can use the pain and turn that into purpose, but some people go through so much for so long that they're not able, there's so much to decipher that, I mean, for me, like, where do I choose? Where do I draw that line? I mean, I remember for the last, like, well, when I was first starting, they're like, well, use your pain as your purpose. I'm like, which situation? You know what I mean? I just kept asking those questions, like, which situation do you want me to choose? What pain do you want me to use? Because there was so much. And I don't want to be over dramatic, because it wasn't like constant drama or pain or whatever, but there was a lot. There was a lot of situations that, you know, deaths, drug use, accidents, losses, financial struggle, financial windfalls, financial struggles, job changes. There's just so much that, you know, where do you start? Where do you really start? Especially it's somebody my age, you know. I think for younger folks, it's easier to use your pain as a purpose and to talk about that and to grow through it and to use it to help others. But I didn't know which one to really kind of go through, to change, to use, to sort of help make a big difference. It's just so, it just seems so massive for me. So many things to choose from. But the more that I let myself sit with all of it, the more I realized that it was a massive play that had been going on in my life and around my life that I was not aware of at the time. And that play, just like acts in a play, you know, the first act led to the second act led to the third will eventually lead to the final. You know, I'm older in life. You know, I guess I'm probably in the third act, and I'm hoping that it will lead somewhere positive and good, and we'll have a great ending. But I do know, and I am fully aware that, you know, Romans 5 verse 3 through 5 that Paul wrote is so accurate, that we have to be grateful for that journey and that pain, and that takes a while. You know, there's still a couple things that I struggle with not really understanding, and that's part of it. Like, we may never truly understand why things or people may have behaved or acted in certain ways, but we still have to process that and be okay with it without answers. And that's not an easy thing to do. Like I said, I still on occasion find myself thinking, why did that person do this? Why did that person do that? But, you know, at the end, for me, I always shake my head and go, okay, it doesn't really matter. You know, here we are. And I let God continue to guide me. I can see how each step of this massive play has led to the next act and led to the next encounter with people. It's put me in rooms that just are amazing to me. Rooms that I've worked hard to become part of, but it just, you know, I look at things and I shake my head going, I could never have planned this. You know, being here where I am now, I did not plan this. This came about in so many different pieces, and it led me to where I'm at. And you know, it's through It's through the pains, it's through the traumas, through the frustrations, through the fear, honestly. There was lots of fear, especially over the last 10 years. Fear was so high on the list of things that were taking hold of my life that how do you keep going? Well, you appreciate the pain, you learn from it, you pick the things that need to be learned, and then you use your free will in a way that follows God's word, and you take that next step, because we don't always know so far in advance. And that's probably the most frustrating thing with God's path, is that we don't know 10 steps ahead. We can kind of plan and think we know, those next 10 steps or the next 5 steps, but ultimately things can change, and they do. And it's through that love of God and through the perseverance that we learn through the pain that we've already had and experienced and processed, that we can continue on and know only for sure what that one next step is. And anyway, so I hope that helps. When you're walking with God, it's not an easy path. It doesn't come with immediate benefits. It comes with a lot of work, but it's worth it in the end, because we're promised that everlasting life with God in heaven, and I'll be damned, I'm not missing that. I hope you don't either. Keep on healing.